Good evening, America and planet Earth. Allow me first to apologize. I do, like many of you, enjoy the comforts of the everyday routine, the security of the familiar, the tranquility of repetition. I enjoy them as much as any. But in the spirit of commemoration, whereby those important events of the past, usually associated with someone's death or the end of some awful bloody struggle, are celebrated with a nice holiday, I thought we could mark the end of this June the 9th, a day that is seldom remembered, by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have the first in a series of little chats. There are, of course, those who would rather we don't speak. I suspect, if not now, if not already, that some day soon, perhaps, orders will be shouted into telephones, and it may come to pass that someday, truly, men with guns may be on their way. Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those willing to listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country and with our society at large, isn't there? Cruelty and injustice, intolerance and oppression, and where once we had the freedom to object, to think and act as we saw fit, where once we were not afraid to stand up for ourselves and for the little guy, so to speak, we now have censors and systems of social surveillance coercing our conformity and soliciting our submission. How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable, and that right soon. But again, truth be told, if we're looking for the guilty, we need only look into a mirror. I know why we've done this. I know we were and have been and are afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There are and have been a myriad of problems which have conspired, are conspiring to corrupt our reason and rob us of our common sense. Fear is getting the best of us. And in our panic, we are turning more and more to who promises us order, promises us peace, and no matter how they behave, all demanded in return is our silent, obedient consent. More than 400 years ago, a great citizen wished to embed a different day, the 5th of November, forever in our memory. His hope was to remind the world that fairness, justice, and freedom are more than words, they are perspectives. So if you've seen nothing today, if the crimes of modern governments and of modern big business remain unknown to you, then I would suggest that you allow this June the 9th and the 5th of November and every day in between and every day after that, until your eyes are opened, to pass unmarked. But if you've seen what I've seen and continue to see, and if you feel as I feel, and if you would seek as I seek, then I invite you to join me for a little time. And perhaps together we can help get to the root of what's going on, address it, shine a light on it, start to heal from it, diagnose it. Maybe we can start to come back together as a people and a society, get past our differences, and start to see a better future actually take shape in front of our eyes. It's possible. And it begins right here and right here. I am here like this because I could be any of you. I am here because the veil of the darkness in our world, the cloak of the darkness in our world is lifting. It is becoming harder and harder for us to avoid seeing it, to look away from it. More and more I meet people, especially younger people, who are saying they wish they could do more to help, more to address what's going on, more to change it for the better, and they don't know where to begin. This is a very, very tough nut to know where to take the best first crack at it. I am here because it is true that our integrity sells for so little, but it is all we really have. It is the very last inch of us, but within that inch we are free. An inch. It is small and it is fragile, and it is the only thing in the world worth having. We must never lose it or give it away. We must never let anyone take it from us, even ourselves, even our own minds. I'm not here to wear masks. This is just symbolic of how afraid we are to step forward, to stand up, to step into the light. But I don't think we need to be afraid anymore. I think the whole world, we're all primed for a software update to the human operating system. I would never profess to have all the answers, but I think we can, by talking about it, by starting to address what's really going on, by getting back to the root of things, things will start to get better. I've witnessed this as the result of my own behavior. So, in lieu of the more commonplace sobriquet, to finish off this introduction, allow me to suggest the character of this dramatis persona. Voila! In view, humble vaudevillian veteran, cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate. This visage, no mere veneer of vanity, is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, vanished. However, this valorous visitation of a bygone vexation stands vivified, and has vowed to non-violently vanquish these venal and virulent vermin, vanguarding vice and vouchsafing the violently vicious and voracious violation of volition. The only verdict is non-violent vengeance. A vendetta held as a votive not in vain, for the value and veracity of such shall one day vindicate the vigilant and the virtuous. Verily, indeed, this vichyssoise of verbiage veers most verbose. So let me simply add that it is my very good honor to meet you all, and you may call me Ionicles. It's not all that easy to breathe in that thing. No more masks. No more hiding, I say. So, I'm gonna do what I can now. I'm gonna start to talk. I had a teacher, one of the best I ever had, if not the best I ever had, who said to me once when we were working on Romeo and Juliet. I went to school for things like this, you see. Perhaps it's part of why, for me, I've been frightened of it for a long time doing this. To me, it's like, I know how toxic the internet can be and social media, and I know thousands of videos are getting thrown up every day, and I know maybe no one will watch this, ever. Any of these. But it doesn't matter. It's not about the outcomes. It's not about how I feel like this is sort of like walking up to a piranha tank and aiming a swan dive at it. I had a teacher who once said to me, he called me by my name, and he said, now all you have to do is speak. So maybe he's right. Maybe that's all we need to do. One time I worked with a lawyer. We'll talk more about things like this later, but he came up to me and he said that no matter how many flaws our legal system may have, at least it still allows us, no matter how impassioned we are about some issue, to come together and talk about it, and he was right. So, taking a cue from that, I'm calling this first series of videos, and hopefully there will be many, calling this Revolution 101, as in an entry-level class to what revolution is, how it always begins right here. and how hopefully, if we're not doomed to repeat the past, if we can learn from it a little bit, and we'll try to do some of that here too, then maybe we'll, in this lifetime, live to see the first nonviolent revolution in the history of life on this planet. Perhaps we're in store for a spiritual revolution. And I know it's easy to roll eyes at that and roll eyes at the idea that we'll ever see the end of war on this planet, but even the country in which we live, we Americans, started out with an idea that to some was high treason. It was ludicrous. Oh yeah, you're going to get away from the king, sure. I want to talk to you about how twisted things are becoming. Today I'll give you one example. I'm sure, I'm quite sure that they will call me crazy, but I'm getting used to that by now. And we love to slap labels on each other. This is a big problem. No one likes to be called names, but we do it so easily, especially on the internet, especially when we don't have to look into the eyes of the people our words might hurt. This is immoral. We're not thinking about others. We're not engaging in this idea that we don't do things to others we don't want them doing to us. No matter if they do it to us, we just don't do that. We don't bring that further into the world. One label that, if we look in pop culture, and I'm going to sort of weave a lot of this together and show you how over decades upon decades, for a long, long time, people we admire and care about in their creative works have addressed the same issues, that the writing has been on the wall for a long, long time, and it's written in blood, sweat, and tears, and it's your tears and your blood, your sweat, and mine too, and our children's. We're not separated from each other. If you've been breathing in wildfire smoke lately, the world is literally on fire as I'm starting this, then you understand that we're all together. And it's not just someone other country's fault. It's almost necessary to believe, of course, they're doing the best they can to fix it. I've been in San Francisco when the sky was orange because there was so much smoke in the sky, and that was our land that was burning. One label, if you look in pop culture, if you look into the world of the Hunger Games, one label that gets slapped on a band of revolutionaries trying to fight against a corrupt regime of government is radical. And when we hear this word nowadays, if it's ever used in mainstream news, mainstream media, I believe almost without exception there is a negative connotation. There's a stigma associated with radical. But this is fallacious. It's a fallacy that it's a negative thing intrinsically. It's actually quite the opposite. The word radical comes from a Latin word spelled R-A-D-I-X, which I have not studied Latin formally, so maybe I'll mispronounce, but I'll do my best. I believe it's pronounced radix. And the word means root. So in a corrupt time where the moral bar is falling, to be radical in a classical sense can be to return to an earlier state of doing things, such as the idea that we're all equal, we're all created equal, and that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to its own ends, it is the right of us people to abolish it and to reestablish new government that we feel best will affect our safety and our happiness. In a corrupt time, to be radical can be a good thing. So today I invite you to embrace that idea. Let's all be radicals in a classical sense. It doesn't mean become violent. I would never ever suggest anyone become a source of violence, ever. But this is a step. This is a little bit of light shined on an idea that has fallen into shadow. And I'll try to keep these to around 10 minutes. This one I imagine will run longer. But I have no scripts. Aside from the occasional theatrical indulgence, things that I may have had memorized for many years, there's no scripts here. I have a pad of bullet points, things I might want to talk about. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know where this is going to go, and that's part of what's exciting about it. I invite you to join me for more of these. I invite you to think about what it means that corruption is now incorporated into our society, or embedded, woven into our society, and what we can do to fix it. We can really only change ourselves. That's the best thing we can do. I'm not going to be the one to lie. I'm not going to be the one to steal. I'm not going to be the one to cheat people. No matter what other people do, I will stand by that. That's what integrity is. So, remembering again the words of my teacher, I will hear, before I leave you, I will share this. Some words written by who I consider to be our greatest writer, the greatest writer who ever lived in any language. I will remember today that, as afraid as I've been to do this, and how to some extent I could have done this years ago, I wouldn't necessarily have learned as much as I've learned, and things we're going to get to soon wouldn't have been possible. But I remember, and I share with you, that all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, and then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. The sixth age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again to childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that marks this strange, eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. So while we still have some, if not all, of the above, and strength and will and means besides, let's not forget, let's not take our voices for granted. Let's not take our appetite for peace for granted. And together, maybe we can make sure that, as we may feel that we are now paying the price for things that have not been addressed previously, which is not to point fingers at anyone. I think it's a big step for us to accept that we're all doing the best we can. Even if it doesn't look like that to one of us, we're all doing the best we can. And I think we can do better together than we can apart. I think a lot of us feel that way, but this is such a divisive time. And the labels and the name calling are not helping at all. So maybe we can help things turn. Maybe we can turn this into something like a pivotal moment for everyone and start putting these fires out, the ones that we can't see with our eyes, the ones that are maybe a little harder to extinguish. So I will now leave you for now with a valediction I may repeat many times. I will say to you, may the force be with you all always, and may the force of peace be with you all the more. Peace be with you, and I'll see you again soon. Okay. Bye now.